a cold open. I'm so afraid. um, during holiday seasons, I love to make like holiday cocktails. I'm a big fan of seasonal cocktails. They're really the only time of year that I make cocktails. And so a week ago I had some friends over and I made them like pumpkin spice spiked shakes, and they were very good. Anyways.
What did you,
That's it?
What did you spike them with?
I with caramel vodka and I made like puree, like it was pumpkin puree and vanilla ice cream and all the stuff to make a pumpkin milkshake. Anyways, this is going on too long now. Okay, welcome to Overthinking. Okay, welcome to Overthinking Games, a podcast about what video games can teach us. My name is Dempsey, and before we introduce Katie and Seth, we have a guest this week. So Joshua, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Joshua. I'm the Gamer's Drink. I have a channel on TikTok called The Gamer's Drink where I pair cocktails and mocktails and all sorts of other drinks with video games. So
yeah, and yeah, there's also like mini reviews as well, where you kind of talk about the vibe of the game and your impression playing it and stuff like that. It's very thoughtful. It's very good. Highly suggest following The Gamer's Drink because it's good content. Anyways, so do our regulars want to introduce themselves now, Katie and then Seth?
Sure. I'm Katie. I'm a special ed teacher, and I'm drinking a passion fruit beer, and it's great.
Hi, I'm Seth. I teach Earth and Space Science. I have a Wawa chocolate milkshake and an empty bottle of generic Diet Cola.
Good thing it was blurred out so that you don't get copyright infringement there.
What is Wawa? Is it a restaurant?
Is that how children say Walmart?
No. Deli / gas station native to the Northeast.
Okay.
I feel like we've talked about this before.
Yeah, because Dempsey makes fun of it every time I bring it up.
Okay, well, I have a bad memory.
What are we talking about this week?
So our topic today, we're going to talk about God of War, and both our kind of collective experiences with God of War, our personal experiences with God of War, what that game, means to us. And also, I want to look at some editorial columns that I've read about specifically what God of War has meant to men for whatever reason. I think it's a beautiful game. I think it's, I have a lot of feelings about that game. We'll get into that. But first, let's start off with what we've been playing this week. Joshua, do you want to start off with what you've been playing this week?
Absolutely. And before that, I do want to say that I am sipping right now a Black Russian. So this is Black Russian is vodka and Kahlua coffee liqueur. Some people use Mr. Coffee. That's another coffee liqueur. Some people have different variations on it. Sometimes I like a little bit of orange zest around it. It really kind of brings out some of the flavors, but I didn't do that this time. So what I've been playing this week, I have been playing Lies of P. Yeah, I've been playing Lies of P this week. It is one of the best games that I have played so far this year. I think I'm in chapter 8. I'm not going to spoil anything. But as far as like a Souls-like game, it's like you start the game and you're thinking, oh, this is just like Bloodborne, right? This is just Souls. This is nothing but a Souls clone. But the further you get into it, the more it opens up and becomes something of its own. And I'm enjoying every bit of it. The story, it's like some things I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to see what happens and how these characters are connected and, what's causing this puppet frenzy, right? Because that's what it's about. It's like it's like this steampunk thing and these puppets have gone crazy and killed most of the people in the city of Crack. And, from the jump, it's like what happened, right? And then you find out like these details from different NPCs and throughout the game through these letters and it's a beautiful game. So I'm really loving it so far.
How have you been finding the combat? Is it like satisfying to, like, are the boss fights satisfying, stuff like that?
Yes. Yes. I would even, I'll say this, and I'll say this in my review when I post it. It's, the boss fights are some of the best that I've played, even from any Souls game that I played. And like going through Lies of P, I think that I'm like, it's probably helping me to play Souls games better because so it's like, okay, I need to go into this room without summoning someone. Like you can summon a specter in order to help you out with the boss fight, but it's like understanding the boss's routine, the boss's moves. Like I never did that, right? Before in the Souls game, I would just go and play and just get wrecked and over again. But the game almost demands that you learn the boss so that you can, there are moments where bosses require perfect parries, but there isn't a repost, so you parry, but there's no repost. But the parries, uh, the more you parry a boss or the more you hit a boss, then that their health bar turns like white, and you could do like a heavy attack, and you're able to. It's a stagger. Yeah, you stagger the enemy. You're able to do a heavy attack, and you're able to do a lot more damage. So the combat, I love the combat. I think it's cool. It's not so much as Bloodborne as I thought it was going to be. But yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
Seth is our resident Souls lover. Seth, does this make you want to play
this
Lies
is
of
like
P
a
more?
raving review of a game that I already knew was going to be good. And like, man, I gotta go beat like Baldur's Gate, and I never beat Armored Core, and now you're going to make me go like buy and play Lies of P tonight after we're done recording.
Do you have do you have Xbox Game Pass?
No, I have a PS5.
You got PS5, okay. Yeah. So I play on my PC. I have the Game Pass on my PC, and that's how I was able to get it. But it's like I want to buy the collector's edition of Lies of P. If that good. It's that good. It's that good. Yeah.
So is most of the storytelling, like you're saying, it's like from talking to NPCs and like letters and that sort of thing. So could you like play without getting the story?
No.
Or like they don't actually deliver the story to you? You have to like go seek it out, or is it given to you like as you go?
No, it's given to you as you go. That's one of the things I can say about it. It's a little bit more linear than any Souls game that I ever played, but it's not without, like, it doesn't, the linearity of it doesn't get it, if that's a word, I don't know. That doesn't get in the way of it being, Soulsborne-y, right? Like, it's not like something that's just so heavy where it's like, oh, this just ruins the experience. There are cutscenes as well, and the cutscenes are done very nice to, like, reveal certain characters. Like, I just fought this boss, and something happens. I'm not going to spoil it. But, I've seen people on live play this and that certain boss, and they're like, who is this? Who the heck is this? Like, so it's almost like, because you see the bosses, I mean, not the bosses, but you see the guy's feet after you defeat the boss, you see his feet, and then the camera like zooms up from his legs and kind of reveals who he is. And it's just like, oh, what's going on with him? How does he contribute to the story? So, but yeah, it's a mix of all of that.
That sounds great. Cool. Seth, what have you been playing?
Not as much as I'd have liked to have been playing, I guess. I'm still playing some Luck Be a Landlord on my phone, which I'm having a lot of fun with. Roguelite indie game slot machine. It turns out like slot machines are just kind of like addicting. Who would have guessed?
Weird. Turn
a Skinner box into a video game, and it's a lot of fun. So it's just like crazy. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. I haven't been playing too much on my computer. I was playing a little bit of Slay the Spire over the course of the past week, just because we had talked about it on the last podcast, and I was like, man, I gotta go back and play some Slay the Spire. We're trying to organize doing like some co-op Slay the Spire between our usual hosts here, so we're pretty excited for that at some point. It'd be fun just to record that and then have some like clips for like TikTok or something.
That's a good idea.
Otherwise, I had a spicy take on the list. Oh, I've been replaying a little bit of Splunky 2, which is
Okay.
I think
Good game.
one of my favorite roguelites of all time. And one of the few games I've 100%. So I don't really have a lot of reason to go back to that game because I've already 100% it, but I'm like, man, the gameplay loop is just so much fun. So I hopped in, I've been doing a couple runs of that. Terrible. So bad at the game. But it's so much fun to play, so who cares? And now
Nice.
I gotta go like download Lies of P. So I'm doing that after we
Look, sometimes in life you just have to do things, so
Yeah.
it's okay. So it happened to me with Baldur's Gate with you two, like 2 weeks ago. It was your fault.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to buy it till Christmas.
Yeah, I'm not even through the first chapter of that game.
Me either.
Katie, what have you been playing?
Oh gosh. Y'all, I've been playing a lot of things. I'm like, do I have other hobbies? I'm sure I do, but not this week. I finished Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade, and it was amazing. And it was so beautiful. And it's like one of those games where I can't wait for it to be like a year or two in the future so I can play it again and it can be all brand new to me again. Because my memory is like a goldfish. So it was just beautiful. Like I loved everything about it. The sound design was amazing. The graphics were amazing. The storytelling was beautiful. The combat was amazing. The only thing I didn't like about it, so I guess not everything, was puzzles. What's that, Josh?
Did you play it with the headphones on?
Mm-hmm. Yep, 2 headphones in, on my Steam Deck, in my bed, in the dark. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Have you played that one?
Yeah, I did a review on my channel. It's probably a little bit further down, but yeah, I played it.
Oh, okay.
Let's see, last year, and it was oh man, as far as like how it brings to light like mental health, you know, that whole aspect of it and trauma and I think she was schizophrenic. You know what I mean? I think that's what was going on.
They don't narrow it down onto a specific diagnosis. I read a little article about it. But they wanted to bring in the symptoms that people have that are like struggling with hallucinations, visual and audio hallucinations.
Yeah. And then through the story and through all the combat and the kind of hell that she goes through, you kind of find out like what happened. And it's just like, it's like, golly. And it's, okay, I'm not going to say anything else about it.
I know. Oh, it gives me chills just thinking about it. It's so good. So that was a magical experience for me. I went from that straight to Papers, Please, which it's funny because as a special ed teacher, about half my job is doing really detailed legal paperwork. And now all I want to do is come home and do really detailed paperwork on my Steam Deck. You play as like this immigration checkpoint person, and it's a roguelike, and you're trying to, there's a story, but you're trying to survive as long as you can.
Hold on, Seth is making fun of you.
No, Papers, Please is not a roguelike.
It is! Because when you die, you start over. It is. When you die, you don't get to, you have to start over. You can start from the day you died on, but that's usually a bad idea. It's usually a bad idea because you died because you sucked and you didn't have enough money to feed your family. And the, like, Aristotska police came and arrested you.
It doesn't make it a roguelike just because you can lose and have to start over.
You don't think
on
so?
Steam, hold on. On Steam,
Okay.
people describe it as a roguelike.
That's
Thank
insane.
No, it's not, because as you progress, you unlock things that make it so that you can progress further. And if you die, the only thing is they're extremely kind and say, yes, you can continue on from the last day. But usually if you died, it's because you were not doing well and you don't have enough money. So you need to go further back anyway to like get in a better position.
This would get the most toxic comments possible on TikTok if I posted there. Arguing if a game is a roguelite or not. But anyways, go on.
Anyway, so as you go, it gets progressively more difficult. Like at first they're like, just check the passports. Only nationals, like residents, are allowed in. And then it gets more and more complicated. They have to have a ID and they have to have a passport and they have to have a physical description and they have to have an entry permit and a work permit and all these things. And you're like, you have this tiny little desk, so you can't see everything. And you have to like move the papers around to figure out and like match all the details. And it sounds horrible when I'm describing it, but I just love it. And maybe it's like Stockholm syndrome because it's almost my real job, but it's been really good. It is a roguelike. And then I started God of War today because I knew we were going to talk about God of War. So I started the 2018 God of War today, and I played it for about like 3 hours or something, and I'm really liking it. I think
what point in the story
it's
are you?
darling. I met a witch in a wood.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm just past that part. So
Cool.
I'll talk about that more when we get into the actual topic. But yeah, that's what I've been playing. How about you, Dempsey?
So I have been playing an ungodly amount of Baldur's Gate 3. That game is my game of the decade. That game, it's so deep. The characters are so good. Like the strategy is so good. I'm doing like 4 different playthroughs with like different friends, and every playthrough I'm doing a different character, and it is a wildly different experience just from like the strategy. It's so ginormous, and like each playthrough I'm also discovering literal like large areas that I just was not aware of. It's so good. I love that game so much. And so I'm in the 3rd act now after 200 hours. And it gets like proper D&D weird, which I'm very excited about. So like it gets like I would have never guessed the kind of insanity that is going on in that game. But like the writing's so good, like it still grounds you in some sense of suspension of disbelief. That game is just I love that game so much. I want to do like an episode about it once I finish it. Like I need to do something with this. It's very hard to talk about because of how large it is. But I am loving it. I also finished Night in the Woods, which is it's fantastic. I love it so much. It's a 2D walking sim. I talked a little bit about it on a few episodes ago that I started it. So it's like a 2D walking sim. You play a 20-year-old woman who drops out of college and is terrified that she's stagnated in life. And you have adventures with your friends, and it's like very dialogue based, very story driven. There's pretty much like really minimal gameplay elements at all. There's like some really light platforming, but mostly it's more of like a visual novel. I just adore it. I love everything about it. I love the music. I love the writing. I love the vibes. It's very fall heavy. It's like lightly spooky. It's very existential. The characters are, so it's, the art style is almost like a children's book, but it's characters that are dealing with like the worst possible experiences a human being can ever go through, coming out of these like little cartoon animals' mouths. It's great. It's fantastic.
Are they animals?
Yeah. So you play as
cute.
like a little cat.
Well, now I'll play it. I like cats.
I think I have that game.
Good.
I just haven't played it yet. I think it came through because I subscribed to Humble Bundle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I think it came through there. I think I have it, but I'm interested in playing.
Do you like games like that?
Yeah, I like. Let me see. Games like that. There was one game. I think What Remains of Edith Finch. Is that the game?
Oh yeah.
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 That's
when
one.
you're like you're like discovering like what happened to your family. Isn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So game. Yeah. I love a good narrative in a game. You know, like that's my preference. Like if you give me a game with a good story, that's what I love. That and a good campaign like Titanfall. Titanfall didn't necessarily have a lot of story to it, but it was just a good experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I really recommend that. And then I played another game. I'm gonna Google the title just to make sure I'm getting the title right. But I think it's Looking Up, All I See Is the Ceiling, which fantastic title. Oh my god! Every indie movie bone in my body is like, oh, that's a good title. It's a point and click adventure. it takes about an hour to complete. It's very short. And you play as a med student who really needs to take a nap. It's kind of the plot of that game. You just yeah, it's kind of a psychological horror. So there's, I think in my head, because my brain is very small and I need to categorize things in ways that helps me make sense of the world. There's psychological horror that really cares about its characters and psychological horror that's really mean. And like, for me, there's like if a story is a psychological horror story and like the story is just really mean to the characters, like that's a turnoff for me. But looking up All I Can See Is the Ceiling is like extraordinarily terrifying. But it's also a very kind game. And like the message is like, sometimes it's good to take a break. And that's kind of the message. And so it's like, it's very like, it's pretty disturbing and weird and uncomfortable, but it's also like, I feel like it's from a very kind place, if that makes any sense.
I just bought it, so thanks.
Oh, it's very cheap.
Yeah, it's like $2.
It's
Yeah.
on.
You guys aren't good for my budget.
It's on Steam.
Yeah, it's on Steam. The same creator or the same developer made a bag of milk and a bag of milk and a bag of milk, which is also a psychological horror. And anyways, it was really good. It takes like between like half an hour to an hour to finish. Very light puzzle elements. Like it's not like, I don't know. I think like even a Nancy Drew game would be more difficult puzzles than.
Why are you such a jerk? Nancy Drew is great. Nancy Drew puzzles are hard.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that like, I feel like I stepped on someone's toes here. I'm sorry. I just mean like it's a mystery, but like you're not like writing things down and like trying to deduce like complicated mysteries. Yeah. Anyways, so I really loved it. And it's very spooky. So yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so that's what we've been playing this week. Okay, now we're going to move on to our main topic, which is God of War. Do we want to each go around and talk about our relationship with this game? So I will start, and then we'll do Seth and Katie, and then Joshua will kind of end us, because I think me and Joshua might have the most to say about this. So I'll kind of just start out talking a little bit about what my experience with the franchise and this game specifically is. This was one of the first games I played when I got back into gaming as an adult. It was like this and Red Dead 2. During the pandemic is kind of when I got back into video games proper. And I think I did not play the first God of Wars on like the PS2 and 1 and PS3 and stuff like that. I have no familiarity with the franchise before this. This game did, I guess, really convince me that video games can be both like really bombastic and adventurous and have really good combat. And I think I think for me, this game was it connected with me because of how cinematic the story is. So like when you play like a Hollow Knight or like Elden Ring, those games tell stories in only a way video games can. Like it's through, you really have to interact with the world in order to get the lore. God of War like is incredibly cinematic. And so it was like my first video game as a grown up, and it was very digestible, which I think it's meant to be. I think it's the point of that franchise from Sony's perspective, is to have mass appeal that way. And so I was working in filmmaking at the time, and so like the fact that it's all like one continuous camera angle, and the fact that the camera is always incredibly grounded, and like it feels a lot like a movie, like those elements from a technical perspective really connected with me. And so that's one of the reasons why I love it, because it got me taking more seriously. It got me thinking more seriously about video game stories. And I think it has a lot to say about fatherhood and masculinity, and kind of deconstruct those ideas in a way that still celebrates adventure and masculinity. Like, it both deconstructs and critiques a lot of cultural ideas about masculinity, but is also like very warm towards men and very like celebratory of certain aspects of traditional masculinity as well, which I felt as a man very comforted by. So yeah, that's kind of, and then Ragnarok is also very good, and that's a whole nother thing. Like, that kind of explores a whole nother set of very complicated, very detailed ideas. Okay, anyway, so that's kind of my initial relationship to the game. Seth, do you want to talk about your connection to this game at all?
Yeah, I don't have too much to mention here. I had, in our sort of pre-show talk, I mentioned God of War isn't 100% my type of game, but I do think it's interesting, some of the bits that Dempsey had mentioned. I don't think we get from a lot of games the specific sort of perspective of fatherhood, and like how that's like a very specific and I think well-known like character interaction. And I mean, like, real life interaction that most people have had, but I just don't think it's really made its way down into like the video game space super well. And I think it's very sort of relevant in the sort of, there's a lot of like modern conversation about, you know, ideas such as like toxic masculinity. And we had done an episode a while ago about, did we do an episode about like women in gaming, or
I went on my soapbox during the multiplayer episode.
It was the multiplayer episode. And sort of just taking the other look of things from the other side of stuff like that. So I haven't personally played God of War. I've seen a little bit of playthroughs, both like in person. My roommates in college were playing through it, as well. I've seen some stuff online. So I don't know how much I'll have to directly contribute to the conversation, but hopefully I can have some good questions for the crowd.
Nice. For me, I actually got God of War when I got my PlayStation 4. When did I get that? Like in 2000, I guess it was probably like 2019 or something. And I got Horizon Zero Dawn and The Last of Us and God of War came with my PlayStation. So I've had God of War for a really long time. And I did try it once, and I played like 10 minutes of it, and then I decided to play The Last of Us instead, and then I never went back. So today I was like, hey, I have this game. We're going to talk about it. I should probably play it. So today was my first foray into really any exposure to God of War. I kind of vaguely thought that Kratos was Greek, which turns out that I was right. But I I don't really understand what's going on. How are we in a Norse world when I'm pretty sure he was Greek mythology? And like my husband was like, what mythology is it? And I said, I think it's Greek. And then I was like, no, I'm completely wrong. It's Norse. And then I'm like, wait, no, it is Greek. So I'm a little confused by the lore. But I'm just a few hours in. And so far, I've really enjoyed, like you're saying, Dempsey, that exploration of like male relationships and fatherhood. And every time Kratos reaches out to touch Atreus, I'm like, just comfort him. God damn it. It's okay. But I'm looking forward to getting to know it a little bit more and talk about it today. So how about you, Joshua? Go ahead, Dempsey.
So I just want to say that Katie represents a very spoiler sensitive audience. And so if there are things that I think will be spoilers, I will tell Katie, and then therefore the audience, that, you know, you might want to skip ahead a little bit.
Oh man, God of War. So I played pretty much all of the God of War games, except for there was like 2 PlayStation portable versions that came out. I never played those, and I never played God of War Ascension. But I played God of War 1, 2, and 3, and God of War 2018, and most recently God of War Ragnarok. So let me just start off by saying this. God of War 2018 was the first video game that ever made me cry. Like, there's a part in there, and I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a part in there where he has to go back to his to their home. Like they get further out, but there's a moment where he has to go back, and I don't even know what it was, but I just broke down. Like, yeah, he has to go back, and I think it's because of me knowing who he was in the first three God's War, right? And for him trying to get away from that, like as much as he could, and at that, yeah. So it's just that moment I was just like, oh man. And I don't know if I'll be skipping ahead by just saying this. I mean, yeah, Dempsey, you were and Seth, you guys were talking about, masculinity and fatherhood and stuff like that. So I have two children. And it's crazy because I played the old God of Wars when I didn't have kids. And then, fast forward, I have two kids, and now I played the new God of War, and I was like, golly, this is like the best game ever, right? So, yeah, just knowing, I don't know if I want to get into too much now, or if you guys had any other things that you all want to prompt to kind of segue into a larger conversation. But that's, long story short, that's my relationship with God of War, without saying too much.
So for people like, so I've watched the YouTube video explanations on like the story up until now, but for people like Katie that are like, why is he a Norse, and like how connected to Greek was he? Do you want to kind of cover that a little bit, just for some narrative context as we kind of talk about?
So
18?
So can I spoil the first, second, and third God of Wars so you can understand? All right, so
I'm fine with that.
so Kratos was, I think he was a general. I haven't played the first one in a long time, but he was the leader of the Spartan army. So if you ever watched 300, right, that gives you a lot of context into who the Spartans are and how ambitious they are, and how, aggressive and how disciplined and formed they are in order to win a battle. And so Kratos was losing a battle at one point. He prayed to Ares, who was the god of war, the Greek god of war. And he said, Ares, if you let me win this battle, I'll, be yours and do whatever you want. So Ares was like, cool. And Ares gave Kratos these things called the Blades of Chaos, I think. And they were like these chains that wrapped around his arm. So like in the beginning of God of War 2018, that's why you see
he's got the thing.
Exactly.
I saw that and I was like, it started to come undone, and I was like, what is the significance? He is clearly like seriously upset that he has to retie his bandages, and I don't understand it all.
Yeah.
That makes more sense now.
Yeah, so he gives him these blades of chaos, and Kratos he essentially becomes Ares' puppet. So Kratos was like the bloodlust in him was like boiling, and he was defeating village after village, just conquest and conquering all that he can. And it was one time that he came across this one particular village, and Ares was like, you need to burn the village down, right? So his soldiers started burning the village down, and Kratos comes into this one particular house, right? And, for anybody who's listening to this, who knows this more accurately, please forgive me. I'm just going off of what I remember, but I'm sure that it's probably like 95% right. So he goes into this house, and he like, there's this woman and these two kids in the house, and because he's just like blindly just killing up things, right? He ends up murdering this woman and these kids. And I think there was a woman there, this older lady who was like a witch or something like that. And he comes to find out like these people that he killed was his original family. That it was his wife and his two kids. And he came to his senses like, whoa, wait a minute. I just murdered my own family. And because they were burning the villages down, his wife and his wife and his kids were burned. It's either wife and two kids or wife and one kid, but they burned up. And so the reason why he's so pale is because those are the ashes of his wife and his children. They're stuck to his skin. So yeah, that's why he's pale. God of War is such a deep, it's so, and so what happens after that, because in the start of the first God of War, he's like falling from a cliff because he's been tormented. He lost his family, the way he lost his family, and now this god, Ares, has him as a puppet. And so, long story short, he said, you know what? In order for me to be free, I need to go after Ares. And he does. He goes after Ares with the help of the other Greek gods. So they're giving him these gifts along the way in God of War 1. And the final thing that he needed was Pandora's box, because that's what they said that he needed in order to defeat Ares. He defeats Ares, but then he becomes the god of war in the Greek pantheon, right? So, and I'm trying to make this as fast as I can to catch up, because part 2 is about them trying to control him. And he's like, no, y'all can't control me, and the thing is that Kratos always wanted freedom. He always wanted to be free of, because I think even at the end of the first God of War, you see him sitting on the throne, and he's like, got his knuckles on his face, and he's like, dang, I'm still not free because now I'm still part of the gods. He, in his quest to be free, now the Greek pantheon turned on him, and they're trying to, ensure that he remains in his place. And he wasn't taking none of that. Another thing, when we talk about toxic male masculinity, he was that. He was like, there are moments where, you see him sleeping in the bed with like 3 different women in the old games, so all of that, everything you can think of regarding, a guy who just wants revenge. And so, yeah, he goes after all of them. And come to find out that in Athena is like, counseling him throughout that first game, but he's like turning on all of them. And then he gets the, what do you call the Titans. In the third game, he gets the Titans in order to go after Zeus. He also finds out that Zeus is his father, right? So
very Greek.
It's very Greek. Throughout all of that, Kratos destroys he kills the entire Greek pantheon. Like, every god, he was a force to be reckoned with. And at the end of God of War 3, Zeus stuck him in, so you'll see in God of War, like, he has the scar on his chest, like in his stomach. So Zeus stuck a large sword into him, and at the end, that Zeus is dead, but you see this trail of blood leading off the cliff, which told us that Kratos was still alive, right? So somehow he found his way to a whole nother a whole nother mythology, and now he has this son. You know what I mean? And it's just like, dang, what happened? He has this son. He doesn't have the Blaze of Chaos anymore. So it's almost like, well, who is this, right? Like, is this the mad God of War that is able to kill gods? Like with ease, right? Like, he's ripping heads off, and the amount of gore and the way he kills them is just like, he was really a monster. He was a monster. But me being young and playing the game at that time, right? Because I was in my early to mid 20s. I was like, yeah, get him. Like, I was rooting for him. So, yeah. So I don't know. That's without, from what I can recall, that's how you come to this older Kratos. And
that makes so much sense.
Yeah. So
it seems like it's almost like the journey from anti-hero to hero now with the 2018 one, because the man that I'm seeing in the 2018 God of War, I mean, he's not exactly warm and fuzzy, but like, he's trying not to yell at his kid, which is an improvement,
Yeah, I think that so it's like, and I guess I can say this from a perspective of being a father, um, and finding someone that you love and where you feel like you're seen and that you matter. It's my perspective as a male changed. As I started having kids, and so when I see Kratos, like you were saying, like he wanted to touch his kid, I'm like, I know that feeling, right? Because you know the world, and to have someone innocent come into this world, it's like, it can be. It tells you a lot about yourself. It told me a lot about myself regarding like who I was and who I needed to be for my children. And Kratos has that same struggle. He's like, it's like, who do I need to be? How much can I show him of who I am or who I was? How much I can keep away from Atreus, to make sure that he's protected, so that he doesn't know, like, man, your dad did some stuff that you know that was just really heinous, like destroying the people that he destroyed. Yeah, it was crazy. So
There's probably fear there as well. Like if he probably, maybe I'm not far enough to know, but I feel like he probably has this fear of if Atreus knew what he had done, that it would change the way Atreus looked at him, and he doesn't
yeah,
want his son to know that he did all of these bad things.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I see that. I see that too. Like there are moments where he's just like, and there's a moment in there, which is in the trailers, so it's not a spoiler.
We made
But
it paranoid. I'm so sorry.
yeah, but there's a moment when he was telling Atreus like we're more than that, right? Because Atreus, he's trying to figure things out too, and that's one of the beauties of 2018 God of War, where it's like you got Atreus, who's this person who probably represents um me as a dad, but me as a young boy too. So I see myself in Atreus and Kratos, because I'm like, oh, I remember when I was a kid, I would always try to inquire about what my dad was doing, right? Or what's going on in my relationship with my father. It kind of reflected that. Like I didn't in my 20s, let me clear this up. I didn't do anything crazy in my 20s. You know what I mean? But there were just ways that I was socialized regarding like manhood, and what it takes to be a man, that came into question more as I started to, have children. In the same way that I'm sure Kratos is like, hey, I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to be the best dad that I can be, but I don't really know how to do that, because if you look at Zeus, you know what I mean? Like, what's that struggle? Like Zeus was his dad. Like what frame of reference does he have in order to ensure that Atreus isn't raised the way he was raised, or raised without a father, because Zeus was not present in Kratos' life. So yeah.
So I think one of my favorite things about God of War is like how much meaning there is, and like it kind of, in my head anyways, and maybe this is like, I don't know, looking at it with very rose colored glasses, but like originally mythologies were there to like explain things and kind of give, these people who didn't have like science or whatever, like stories to pass along and explain why the world is the way it is. And famously, like even like within Greek mythology, is like they would change to kind of fit the needs of the people that were telling these stories. And so the mythologies would morph to fit the needs of the culture that's telling the stories. And I think like God of War 2018, like really does that in both like how it morphs to fit the needs of the people who are playing the games. And I think for the dev team as well, like growing up, and now we're a little bit older and we need to be more reflective on these narratives that we helped made. And this is like a way to make this narrative like or to take this mythology and to utilize it in a really different way, which like mirrors like how cultures use mythology in general in a way that's really exciting. And I also think like different like in mythology, people would connect and see different reasons for like why the gods did things, and people even do that now. That's why there's people who get their PhDs in like Greek mythology or whatever, because there's so much meaning, and you like people kind of come to those stories with their own things that they need to work out, and like, you know, and it means different things to different people. And I think for God of War 2018 specifically, because that's when I played, I also think it does that really well. Where like, regardless of like whether you, I think most human beings, specifically men, because God of War is about men and marketed towards men, and a part of, I guess, a very masculine tradition of video game development. But like, I think regardless of how good your father figure was, there's still things culturally that you just need to reflect on and deconstruct, and that's like a really healthy thing. And the ways that Kratos kind of does that metaphorically can be taken in like as deep or as gentle as the person approaching it. And so whether that's just like tying your self-worth to ambition, and then you get in a stage of life where you can't do that anymore, and then so, you know, you can no longer define yourself by your ambition, which I think a lot of men do. And like Kratos also has to go through that. Or, you know, for people who masculine might be tied more directly to violence, you know, there's also direct metaphors and parallels there. And it's like, as a story, I think it learns a lot from the mythology that it pulls from, and that also parallels like the best parts of it. Like, this is a canvas in which a lot of different people can use to explore their own experiences, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and Dempsey, even to run off of, you know, what you just said, I think it's interesting in terms of I'm imagining people sitting around a table thinking like, okay, we need to come up with a new God of War game. And you've gotten through God of War 1, 2, and 3, and they're trying to figure out where to go with it next. And they're like, all right, like, what can we do that like hits like the hyper masculinity idea? And somebody's like, yeah, what if he had like a kid? Because we need something that's like really well defining of masculinity. And it seems like one of those ideas that was like, yeah, we can do something with that. I don't know. So some interesting, I think, aspect of masculinity that then isn't talked about as part of the larger conversation is that of fatherhood, which I think you at least touched on a little as part of your mythology bit.
Yeah, and like famously, like most, like almost all of like all pantheons are related to each other, and like famously have very complicated family relationships. And so, you know, whether that's Norse and like Loki and Odin and like Thor, like, and their complicated family dynamics, or famously Greeks have incredibly complicated family dynamics. And so to pull from that source material to tell a version of those family dynamics that would be really nuanced and connect with modern audiences, I think is a really beautiful way to keep the tradition of these mythologies alive, and still relevant. Like, we are doing the same thing that people in Greek, like, we are reinterpreting these myths in the exact same way that people have been doing since we've had written language, which is very cool.
Yeah, to make them relevant for us in the world that we live in. Yeah. Drawing on what you guys are saying, and Joshua, something you said a minute ago about that you identified with both Kratos and Atreus. Atreus? I don't know how to say it. And I think that's such an interesting thing, that because before in the older games, it sounds like it was just that power fantasy where you're just this badass and you're just killing everything, and, you know, you're really like unstoppable. And that's always like fun. Like, everyone likes a power fantasy, but it seems like with the 2018 God of War, they decided to kind of go a more relatable way and dig deeper into those qualities that people really do connect with. And I really like that because I think so often, especially male characters in video games, only ever get like this surface level definition, and you never actually get to see them as real people who have feelings and thoughts and all of these things. And so it's really interesting to go into it and get to see all of these, like, you just see so much going on behind this, underneath the surface, like especially in his interactions with his sons, and it makes it really a really deep and meaningful experience to see that there's more going on than he's saying, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot, because as I'm playing it, especially at that first scene where he gets the knock on the door, that right there, I was like, man, do you know who you messing with? Like, are you serious? Are you crazy? Like, you know, so, and that, like, that kind of sets the tone for pretty much the game for people, for someone who like me, like, I try my best to use I statements because I'm sure that everybody have their different experiences. But for me, it kind of sets the stage, like, that set the tone for the rest of the game. Because it's like, you know, okay, here's a Kratos who's older, who is trying his best to restrain himself. But there are moments in the game where he shows like what he can't do, right? So, like, another thing is not a spoiler because it was in the trailer.
You're fine.
But so there's a dragon, right? And his son is like, have you ever fought one of those things? And Kratos just like looks at him. He doesn't say anything, you know. And Kratos like just looks at him, you know. And it's just like, it's moments like that. So when you're saying like there's a lot that is going on like below the surface, there's a lot that is going on below the surface. And the game does a really wonderful job of connecting those more human elements to, you know, those who are playing. Whereas in those who know his story and like know, you know, who he was. But I love the direction. Like, there was part of me that was just like, okay, now you got a kid. I got a kid too. Are you, as, you know what I mean? Like, are you going to be ruthless like you were? Like, I would, you know, like, is that going to happen? Like, before I even played the game? Or like, what are you going to do? Especially coming off of your wife dying. You know, because that they're going to get a tree in the beginning of the game in order to use as firewood in order to, you know,
The funeral pyre.
Yeah, funeral pyre, so that they can, you know, have her ashes and fulfill her wish, you know. So yeah, there's just so much going on with that, and even within my experience of having kids. Like, right now, it's like things are slowly, as they're getting older, they're starting to see more of like, you know, man, my dad, like, there's these things that are popping up where I'm like kind of showing like who I am as a dad and who I was, you know, even before they were born, and like sharing my story with them. But then being careful about like, what do I tell, you know, how can I guide and direct them, you know, in a way that where they don't make some of the same mistakes that I've made, or if they do make those mistakes, they can learn from it, right? So I think that God of War did a really good job. And there's this, I think it's an hour documentary. I think it's called Birthing Kratos. It's on YouTube, but it's like a documentary that kind of talked about like how they even came to, Seth, like where you were saying, like where did that idea come from? And it seems as though the person who produced who was there in the beginning made that switch because he had a son himself, and he was like, you know, let me take Kratos in this direction, and they really pulled it off really well.
One of the other things that I really love about God of, this is just me gushing about this game. That's fine. I do have some like weird criticisms that maybe I can talk about later. But I think one of the things that I really love, and I'm still like working through this idea myself, and like I really tend to repeat myself and spiral as I'm trying to understand something. So like I'll say the same thing over and over again, a little bit different, until I feel like I get closer to what I'm saying. But the way that I think Kratos like doesn't have to hate himself, like even though like this, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but so, but Katie, do you want to? Okay, great.
Okay, now we can talk, you guys.
So like, I think the game does a really good job of being like, there are these things that you had to do, and these ways that you responded to the world around you, Kratos, that you needed to do, and like there's reasons for that, and like you're not necessarily like a horrible person for responding in these really broad ways like you did. Like we just really have to learn what that looks like in a better context now. And so whether that's him using like and I think that was most explicit when he gets the blades of chaos, and so like he has to like come to grips with his past and accept who he was and accept why he's that way without hating himself for that. And I think this might be like very obnoxious dude commentary, but sometimes when I think when men hear critiques of like masculinity or whatever, there's this like, I don't know, knee-jerk reaction that like just everything about me is wrong, or like I'm just like that, like everything that I love about myself as a man is now coming into question. And I think a lot of men, especially men that get very frustrated with feminism, kind of lean into that, feeling like they're being hyper critiqued. And God of War does a really good job at being like, there are like reasons. And so like, if you want to like connect that to less mythological male characteristics, like being hyper focused or like really ambitious, or like, suppression or whatever, like there are reasons that you developed that way in the world, and it's not always horrible. It's just really important to recontextualize those things in more healthy ways. And Kratos does that. And that was one of the things that, like, when he picked up the Hellblades again and was able to like accept who he was, accept that he needs to recontextualize who he is, but he doesn't have to hate himself or hate who he was. Like, that was like wow, that's so cool. If that makes any sense.
Something else I'm just thinking in terms of that is like, to run back to the fatherhood idea, which I would like to have kids one day. For perspective, I was chatting with my dad fairly recently about like having kids and how it affected him as a person. As I get to be an older young man. Anyway.
He's just rubbing in the fact that he's not 30. It's fine.
Sorry about that. No, so I think it's interesting in terms of maybe the perspective is really like, okay, now I have a kid, so now I need to reflect on my experiences, because if I don't, they're going to become my kids' experiences. And do I really want to send the kid down the path that led me to where I am? Or do I instead want to pave a new path for them? Seems to be where I think that idea is going with Kratos, and why I kind of think it's an ingenious idea to give him a kid, is because now it's like, okay, I used to be this like hell-bent war machine, and like I don't really want my kid to turn into a hell-bent war machine, so like I kind of need to look inside and see how this happened.
Mm-hmm. That would make sense on how, like, in the start of the game, basically, like, Atreus can help Kratos, like, fight monsters, but he's not supposed to be, like, engaging with humans. Like, Kratos doesn't want him to fight men. And I think because he's trying to protect him from that, it doesn't work that great, but he's trying.
Yeah, and I think that, Kratos, he's, to what you were saying, Depsy, like there's this, he's trying to bury who he was so much like the way he's raising Atreus is like is more of a defensive way, right? It's like you need to learn how to hunt. Because this world is cruel and you can't be soft and you have to be ready, right? So that's what he's trying to give to his kid. But at the same time, he's also denying the kid's nature. You know what I mean? Like he's denying that. Like, and that's pretty much what Kratos' struggle is. I think what is also beautiful about it, Seth, as you were saying, like, when I have kids, do I want to raise them in a way that is not like me? It's like, as we get older, we know how to no, I don't want to say deal with people. Yeah, that's the word for it. Like, deal with people. We know how to be in relationships with people. We know what people we need around us, right? Like Kratos, he was like, I can't deal with these shiesty family members anymore. And I've dealt with them. So now I have like this circle of love with, my wife who has passed away, and then I have a son and I have a new life, right? But then I think what happens in the game is that, when all of these things are out the way, right, then there's no one else to deal with but you. And and that has never happened until 2018. Because if you really look at it, as you progress through the game, and not spoiling anything, but as you get to the end, it's an aha moment that's just like, the real enemy isn't necessarily anybody external, but it's always kind of been Kratos dealing with himself. And how in the world do I deal with myself and come to grips with who I truly am and be okay with that? Because it's a dance, right? There's just moments in this game where it's just like, he's struggling with himself in order to ensure that they complete this mission, and that this kid, his son, doesn't get in the way of that, right? Like, he doesn't want his son to see this dichotomy in him that's warring with his self, right? Because that's where the true war is. And so his kid is there, and he's just like, it's almost like Kratos is talking to his kid as if Kratos is not going to be there for long. Like, that's how he's like, you got to be ready, all of that. So it's interesting.
His experiences taught him that anybody that you rely on will be taken from you. And anybody that you care about, you're going to lose. Like, this isn't his first family. This isn't the first wife he's lost. He's already lost his first child. And so that fear I think there's like that dueling fear of cleaving on, like fear to comfort and to connect, and also that fear to let go.
Well, and Kratos is the perpetuator of these things, right? Which is, I think, really the most interesting thing is in a sort of physical metaphorical sense, like Kratos has pushed away everybody else by killing them, and now it's just him. And then he's got a kid and is finally forced to confront, like, well, it's just me now. What now?
What do you think would have happened if that I don't know what the deal was with, but the guy who knocks on the door is like the inciting incident for the story to start. Like, they have that big fight, whatever. What do you think what do you think Kratos would have done without that? Would they have just continued to live in the wood all lonely and sad? Or do you think, like, would he have left Atreus alone in the woods to take his wife's ashes to the mountain?
No, it seems as though he was preparing with Atreus to take them.
They just would have waited.
Yeah, I think Boulder, that's the guy's name who comes and knocks at the door.
That's right.
I think that was like, it didn't surprise Kratos when that happened, right? Like because Kratos is always like, there might be a time where I need to atone for what I've done. You know what I mean? Like I think that's in his mind, which is, to your point, where it's like he knows that something is going to come for him, or that, his kid may lose him, right? And so that's just like the beginning, and it's just like, all right, because I think he even talks to Atreus to talk about, like, we got a tough road ahead, and there's going to be many enemies. You know what I mean? So he already knows that things are going to come against them. But I think what is surprising about Boulder is that Boulder knows who he is, and I think that's probably the surprising thing. Is just like, dang it, now I'm in a world where I didn't think that no one knew me. Now they know me, and I have to keep that away from my son. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
So, okay, Katie, would you hate me if I wanted to talk about one more thing that you have to take your ear out for? So I think the idea of raising Atreus in a way that Atreus has to be self-sufficient, that happens. Where Kratos leaves Atreus for like a lot longer than he intended to, and Atreus responds with just straight up resentment. Like Atreus is just like, this, like, how can you possibly do this? You were going after something that was obviously not real and obviously not sustainable, and like you left me alone to kind of give in to your own wants, and I think in that moment, I think on some level, Kratos saw himself as like some kind of impediment to Atreus becoming a healthy person, where he was like, I need to not be close to my son, because if I become too close to my son, some of this stuff that I don't like about myself might rub off on my son. And then in that moment, he was like, oh no, I need to be here and I need to be close to him, because when I am not, like, it is not good.
But then too, the shift in the game, right? Because you said something that reminded me of that. When Atreus finds out who he is, do you remember that? Like, yep. Atreus' attitude. So now I was like, dang, Kratos has been fighting so hard not to reveal this, and then Kratos is like, after it's revealed and Atreus knows, Atreus is like, oh, we gods. Do y'all know who, and then God, Kratos is like, no, you can't do. So then there's this learning, that Kratos is like, hey, you can't do this. There are consequences for this, because you think that,
and you have to
go ahead. Go for it.
And Atreus's like first impulse was to not care about the people around him when he figures out he was a god.
Yeah.
And Kratos is like, no, you still have to care about the people around you, even though we're gods. Like that is the quickest way to becoming evil.
Yep.
And yeah. Anyways, sorry, I cut you off, Joshua, but
no. That too. I was gonna, say the same thing. It's that's just the beauty of that game. It's like, because Kratos is still on this path of saying, like, I do not want my son to end up the way like I ended up, and I think another thing that Kratos is thinking about wasn't the way that he
can I bring Katie back in?
Sure.
All right, you can come back in.
Yeah. So it wasn't just it. I think too that Kratos was guiding Atreus from who Kratos was, like the Kratos that led him to surrender himself to Ares. Because that's a different Kratos than the Kratos who surrendered himself to Ares. And that's one of the things. So we're talking about Kratos before he knew he was a god, right?
Yes. Yes.
You get what I'm saying? So it's just like before he knew that he was a god and that he was connected to gods, and when that happens, then it's just like you see. Then it's like, okay, I know. Yeah, go ahead.
There's parallels there.
Yeah. Yep. Because his son, and I'm sure he sees that and he's like, no, man, you can't go down that road. I've been down that road, and this is
it. It is so similar. Like Atreus is so much like Kratos in ways that I don't think, like even like thinking about it now, like like Kratos does not. I don't think he's aware of how much of his personality his son is taking on.
I think he is. I don't know. I'm very careful not to talk about this because so
Sorry.
Katie, no. So Katie, there's a moment in the game that we're talking about that happens. But it also it's really kind of consistent with the theme of Kratos ensuring that his son does not make the same mistakes that he's made. And I can say this, right? It's not necessarily like, and I think this is one of the things that me and Dempsey are talking about, is not necessarily that Kratos has murdered the whole Greek pantheon. But what it is kind of magnifying is who Kratos was before and maybe a little bit after he made the deal with Ares. Because Kratos was a god. He just didn't know it. The same as Atreus is a god, but he doesn't know it. So Kratos' frame of reference in order to try to prevent or to try to keep him
Oh my God, yes. Yes. Yes.
You get what I'm saying? To try to keep him from
Katie, finish this game.
I will.
Yeah. So, and that's what we're kind of talking about. It's like, and I think people miss that. They're not necessarily looking, everybody's looking at what Kratos did, you know what I mean, to the Greek pantheon, but they're not thinking about like who Kratos was before, you know what I mean, he made the deal with Ares. And that's the parallel.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. So that's the parallel with him and why he's driven to be like, I know I've had that anger. I've had that bloodlust, right? And and I don't want Atreus to have that, because that destroys people. It destroys people, and your point, the way you look at things, and the way you look at human, look at people, and that's one of the reasons why he didn't want Atreus to be kill people, because perhaps,
Well, and
Kratos was a Spartan. That's what he did. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're okay. He tells him, like, when he does kill. So, in, like, the first, it's not a spoiler. In the first fight that they have with a human, Atreus kills a man, and he's upset by it. And Kratos tells him, like, you have to shut your heart off to that. But then he continues to not let him go into engagements with people, because I think he doesn't want Atreus to shut his heart off to that. He doesn't want him to suffer when he has to take a life, and he doesn't want to take that in and suffer with it, but he doesn't want him to be just okay with it either, which is why he doesn't want him to practice.
And that was, but that also speaks to how Kratos is. I think you said it, Katie, when you were saying that he's raising him because he's raising him in a way where he doesn't depend on anybody, because he'll lose people. So it's more like Kratos is training him to be defensive, like shut your heart to it, right? Because of the journey we're going to be taking, and people are going to come against us who may be human, but we have to make this journey, which is different, right? From him knowing that, okay, I'm a god, And what are the consequences of me, or not the consequences, what else comes with that knowledge of knowing? So does it, I'm asking, does it mean that if Atreus knows that he's a god, that it wouldn't be for defense, but it would be for dominance? So that's the question at where you are, Katie. It's like, that's the question that I would probably ask. I'm like, okay, so what would happen? Like he said, shut your heart off to it. He's training him to kill deer, but what happens if he finds out, that he's a god? How does that change the relationship between Kratos and Atreus? Does it change at all? Will Atreus be given that bloodlust that Kratos got, when Ares gave him those blades of chaos? So
Oh, I can't wait to play the rest of this. I can't wait.
So we're getting about to time. Yeah. So it's very fun because also Ragnarok plays a lot with those same ideas of trying to stop your heart to feel the pain of your actions. Anyways, so thank you so much, Joshua, for talking about God of War with us. We might have you back on at some point, maybe when Katie finishes the game, or maybe just when Seth is too sick to record.
No.
Have you as an alt. Do you want to go ahead and plug your socials where people can find you before we kind of wrap things up?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram. And I go live on TikTok. I don't have a schedule yet, and I'm thinking about creating a Discord as well. I'm still playing with it. But yeah, find me on TikTok, The Gamers Drink, at The Gamers Drink, and on Instagram, the same name, The Gamers Drink.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joshua. So I will kind of bring us home. Thank you so much, audience. If you have any questions or comments or commentary on God of War or anything else, you can email us at the email in the show notes. You can find us on TikTok, where I will be posting more. It's been busy, so it's been hard to post. So I've kind of not as active as we want to be, but we're going to get there. Katie, am I forgetting anything? Do we need okay. Is that it? Okay, great.
I just want to say thank you all for having me. This has been a real pleasure to be in space with you all. So yeah, I just want to say that. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. We had so much fun. Okay. And join us next time on Overthinking Games podcast.
Yeah. That's a really soft goodbye. Okay. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Get your food shots.
Okay. All right. That's it. That's a wrap.
Good close.
That's a wrap.
Good close,
I'm gonna stop my